Redditors who work with the public. What's your most bizarre interaction with a customer? I work at a pizza delivery business. Had a lady one day call in and order for delivery. Sure, what's the address? I'm not going to tell you. I'm sorry, if you don't tell me the address. How are we supposed to deliver to you? I don't know what the address is. Well, if you don't know where you're at, again, how are we supposed to deliver to you? So you won't take my order? Not without an address. Well, I guess I'll just order somewhere else, then. I guess you will. I was a page at NBC Studios in Burbank in the early 2000s and part of our job was working the gift shop and ticket counter for The Tonight Show. Two guys come in and say we're here for the Lakers game. I was like I'm sorry, that game isn't here. It's over at the Staples Center. One of them just gives me a look and says it's NBC, right? I proceed to explain to him that while NBC is airing the Lakers game, we don't shoot it at the studio, and we take our cameras and crew and shoot it at the Staples Center where the Lakers play. The one guy turns around and scribbles on a piece of paper and hands it to me. It says 2 Lakers tickets for insert random name, and he says like what about this? Huh. Thankfully my supervisor jumped in and said oh, you'll have to come back Thursday morning, we'll see you then. Okay, and that seemed to placate them and they left. My supervisor tells me this happened quite often and when you tell them to come back, they rarely do. Theory, I think you actually experienced some type of attempted drug deal, and your supervisor was actually in on it. Used to work at a skate shop, usually alone. Some guy came in 2 days in a row, stayed for a few hours. He wouldn't give me his real name, just telling me to call him alive. Over the course of those 2 days, he told me that he believed he had a parasite in his brain, that satellites were watching us, and about a movie idea he had among other things. I was relieved when I didn't see him again until about a year or so later, when the shop threw a party for Halloween. I ran into Alive who was there alone. He pulled me aside to tell me about another idea for a movie he had and wanted me to be in it. I made an excuse to get away and never saw him again. Nothing too crazy, but it was odd. Librarian. Oh, it looks like you have an overdue book. A biography? Customer. Oh, yeah, Jesus told me to burn that one. Librarian. Customer. Will there be a fine? Librarian. Yes, but we'll have Jesus pay the fine. At a coffee shop, we had a customer come in one day and tell us in a very awkward and stilted manner that he would like to become a regular, but that he wanted a wordless transaction. He would come every day at the same time and get the same drink, and he wanted us to ring him up and give him the drink without anyone speaking to him. It was definitely weird, but we did it for him, passing the info along to the other staff as a kind of tribal knowledge, and he did come every weekday and buy his latte, without speaking to or looking at anyone. It worked very well until one day I was working with a new girl and I had stepped into the back room to get something, and I suddenly heard him screaming out front. The new girl had said, "Hi, what can I get you?" and he responded by screaming in her face, "What the frick is wrong with you? I told you fricking people not to talk to me," and storming out. We never saw him again. That's bizarre. Worked as a dog bather and had this corgi named Potato. He was friggin' adorable. I don't know what I really expected, but when the owner came to pick him up he was this big bodybuilder covered in tattoos and he had this lime green leash, and when Potato saw him he got excited and this big Greek statue looking guy just yells, "Potato, stop that," and I still think about it. Woman calls pizza restaurant for delivery and requests shortened delivery time. Manager tells her we can't do that. Woman gives up and calls competing pizza place. Woman calls us back and tells us that the other place could do what she wanted. My manager, confused, expresses that he is happy for her. She calls back again and tells the manager that nobody better vandalize her house because she cancelled her order, and if her house gets wrecked she will know it was us. My boss, even more confused, assures her that no one cares enough about her cancelled order to seek retribution, and that lots of people cancel orders. Seemingly satisfied she hangs up and we think that it ends there. About an hour later, 2 police officers show up to talk to the manager. This woman preemptively called the cops on a pizza restaurant for a hypothetical crime that hasn't happened and wasn't going to happen. This woman preemptively called the cops on a pizza restaurant for a hypothetical crime that hasn't happened and wasn't going to happen. That's some Minority Report crap right there. I bet you little fricks were going to vandalize her house. You and your little pizza boy mafia. But she nipped that crap in the bud. Good for her. Not really a customer, but I'm a nurse and I got a patient who, as I walked into his room, I caught him eating his own feces. As I gowned up and tried to stop him from continuing because, well, that's gross AF, he started yelling at me to stop and punched me in the chest and face. I hadn't put on a face barrier except a face mask, my frick up, which didn't cover my eyes, and he got his feces onto my face. Though he came in alert and oriented X4 and was very pleasant, I came to the quick conclusion there was a loose screw somewhere there. Note, sadly, this isn't very uncommon. That's just, I can't even. Please tell me you didn't catch any infection from that and got immediately to an emergency shower or face wash. I used to work in a luxury perfume shop while at uni, and I had more bizarre interactions than I can count. My favorite was an old lady. She came in, wearing a dirty house coat and slippers, violently searching in the store. I asked her if I can help, but she said no, and went on with her search. After a while, she came to me and said, "Okay, I give up, and just ask, do you have Horsford?" I told her politely, we didn't, and she started aggressively yelling, I knew it so much. It took us at least 10 minutes to calm her down. She then filed a complaint and left. Horsford is a weirdly butch cologne name. Horsford, for men. Back when I worked at a hardware store, I had a woman scream and cry at me for using my item scanner on her items because its laser would make her sicken or make her sickness worse. Her basket was stacked and she was effectively asking me to hold the line up for a half hour to dial in her product codes manually. She also screamed if I made eye contact. When she left, she told me something to the effects of, "I don't want you to get hurt, but if something bad happens to you, it's because I'm thinking about it." Retail. I work in a liquor store and this happens all the time. I scanned a woman's water bottle once and she promptly put it back and grabbed a different one, stating that water bottle would give her cancer because I scanned it. I was a supervisor at a call center for a major online retailer who was involved in a data breach a few years ago. As usual, we required all of our customers to change their passwords. I had to take over a call from a lady who was absolutely refusing to change her password. I tried to explain as nicely as possible and she kept me on the phone for an hour, insulting me and screaming about how wrong this was. Ultimately, she told me that I, personally, was worse than Hitler and that making her change her password was an offense worse than the Holocaust. No joke. I am not exaggerating at all. Those people are hilarious, in a sad way. I remember modding our history, banning people calling for a second Holocaust while simultaneously denying the Holocaust ever happened, then being called Nazis by them. A woman came in and wanted a morning after pill. While my co-worker was getting it, she told me about the fricking which made the pill necessary. With focus on the guy's dong, it had been a disappointment, and apparently why she decided she didn't want the guy's children after all. Since she didn't speak the language very well, this was mostly done with gestures and facial expressions, but I unfortunately got the gist. I've never wanted video of a conversation so much in my life. In my first years in the army, I also worked a part-time job as an optician in the local mall. One day a lady came in with her mother, about age 40 and 60, and they were quite hyper and giggling at each other. I asked if I could help them and they had a prescription for lenses. No problem. She then asks if she can use her existing frames, and I was like, sure, we can just do lenses. She proceeds to hand me a pair of extremely cheap sunglasses she got from a dollar store. I told her that there was no way those glasses would stand up to having lenses changed out. She insisted that I already said she could. I asked her if she was sure, because it was almost guaranteed they would be destroyed in the process. She still insisted. I pointed out the sign we had up saying we weren't responsible for damages. It was next to the register, and asked her one last time. She said yes again. Okay, I put them in the hot box. a box of heated sand you use to loosen up plastic frames to get the lenses out, and they melted into goo pretty much instantly, as expected. She was over my shoulder watching with these wild eyes, and when I pulled them out after a few seconds she started screaming about how we destroyed her glasses and now we owe her free glasses. Her mom got in on the action at that point and started shouting also about how I did it on purpose. I handed them back to her and said something like, "Mom, I told you so." They went into even more hysterics and by this time were attracting glances from passers-by at the mall. I just walked into the back room to the lab guy and was like, "Dude, you deal with this. I'm done." I then watched as he masterfully overcharged her about $100 for a $20 frame. It was on the display rack for $100, but we had a pile of the same frames in the discount drawer for $20, giving her a 20% discount in the process. I was there when she picked them up in about an hour, acting like she won the lottery at my expense because I was so incompetent. I was still young and had no idea the insanity people would go through to save a few dollars and stick it to the man. I think her plan was to ruin her cheap glasses to get free expensive ones. Guess it backfired. I worked at a smoothie shop. I don't have many wild stories other than the fact this dude came back and complained about how the smoothie was too cold and proceeded to yell at another employee. We didn't know how to react. I was trying my hardest not to laugh. But, bruh, you go to an ice cream shop and say you want your money back after you discover ice cream is cold? When I worked in thrift store, it was protocol for the production workers to write a number with a red dry erase marker on all of the electronics to indicate the date they went out on the floor. This would help determine which items to get off of the shelves if they had been sitting there too long and weren't selling. It was also our policy that electronic items were final sale because people would buy them and break them or remove parts and then try to return them. A woman came in one morning trying to return a small flat screen TV. I explained to her that all electronics were final sale and showed that it was indicated on her receipt. I was feeling generous that day since she was polite and considered returning it anyway if it wasn't working. So I asked her the reason. She pointed out the little red dry erase number and said I need to return this because it has the mark of the beast on it. I was taken aback and asked her to explain further. She explained that she took the TV home and when she plugged it in the TV displayed static and a low frequency sound that hypnotized her and her children. She said that Satan was trying to communicate with her through the TV. I didn't know what to say, so I just explained to her that the dry erase is just the date and showed her that it rubs right off with my thumb. The number was not 666 by the way. I broke policy and allowed her to exchange it for something else, all while having no idea how to react to what she just told me. You bet your butt as soon as she left I went and plugged that TV in to see what happened and of course it was normal. Good ol' Sam Hain-sung. I used to work at an adult store. It was a clean and classy joint, mostly marketed toward female clientele. One afternoon, an older Eastern European customer came in asking for the blue pills that come in the bottle. He was looking for Viagra. I tried to explain that we didn't carry that, but he was insistent that I was hiding it from him. I told him he needed to speak with his doctor to get a prescription and he just got real mad. It soon became clear that blue pills was code for something. Freaking a prostitute. I told him we didn't have this either, and that what he was suggesting was illegal. He got more angry, because what I am wanting is to pay frick you, stupid girl. Then he started to come around the counter making a squeezy gesture with his hands. I flipped out on him, and ran him out of the store and called the police. He came back a few weeks later and I told him he was banned for seeking illegal services. Never saw him again. I'll just never forget. Give me your blue pills. You stupid girl. I pay for your sex. What is problem? I used to work at a small public library. There was an older business owner that came in for a weekly club lunch meeting. These meetings were in a back meeting room that I had no control over. He came into the library a couple of times furious at me because his chair was too cold. He informed me that for the rest of the winter I needed to sit in his chair before he got there, so his chair would be warm for him. I don't know who you think you are, but you're not. Chris Porter, comedian. A guest refused to have his wife check her coat. Our venue doesn't allow guests having their coat in the hall because of fire safety reasons. He got up to the point of furiously shouting while his wife was trying to tell him it wasn't a big deal. He only let up after we told him we were within our rights to deny him entry and would be able to call the police. Our coat check service is free BTW. His drugs were in the coat. I work in a government office. A dude came in with a can opener to threaten the receptionist, then pee on the carpet. He was marking his territory. I work in the customer service for a hiking association and we had a lady come in, complaining about one of our staffed cabins. Got to the point where we had to call said cabin and inform them. Started phone call with, "I'm here with a nice lady," as she proceeded to yell out, "I am not nice. Thanks for stating the obvious." I have a friend who works at Waffle House and they have regulars like every other restaurant is, but this one was a true crack addict. She would come in and talk to the workers as they were yelling out orders for other people. The thing is, she would talk about her dead son all the time. She said that he died in a car crash but he killed himself. She'd also talk about the KKK. No one liked her but they kinda just went with it because if they didn't then she'd lose her mind. She'd call the work phone but she never ordered anything. She just wanted someone to talk to. She finally got banned from that specific Waffle House. I got to meet her before she got banned and she gave me coupons for ibuprofen from CVS and kept touching my friend who wasn't working that day. Banned from a Waffle House is a new kind of low that I once thought impossible. The most bizarre was when an old guy, a frail, grandpa-esque person in his 70s maybe, spent about 20 minutes just complimenting me, telling me stuff like my eyes shine with kindness and intelligence and that my face is a classic, innocent beauty of the muses, cue all-encompassing lol wit on my part. Then my boss called my name, a fairly generic one that I unfortunately happened to share with a fairly well-known poet's muse, which prompted him to launch into a freaking poem. Never in my life have I felt more uncomfortable, and I couldn't even excuse myself because I just couldn't get a word in. He even asked his, similarly old, female, friend to come over and look at me as well. It was incredibly creepy and strange and awful. My boss had to shove a stack of mostly blank papers into my hand and give me a balls task to complete, just to get me away from there with minimal fuss. The worst part? I saw the guy wandering around the store around closing as well, and he only seemed to scamper away when my boyfriend showed up to pick me up. I hate this. I work at a grocery store and by far get the most attention from older male customers. We have a regular customer who goes around the store looking for me just so he can tell me how I'm still beautiful and how he still wants to take me home. Just leave me alone to do my job please. A customer tried to argue with me over the price of CRV. I told her that the state controls how much CRV costs, not the store. She then goes on about how the grocery store across the street charges less for CRV and so I asked her, "Did you buy a 24 pack of water?" She replies, "Number." I explained to her that the state charges 5 cents per bottle. 24 bottles makes $1.20. And since she's buying 24 packs that totals to $2.40 for CRV. She waves me off annoyingly and hands me the money to pay. When I gave her her change, she picks out a penny and says, "No, I don't want this one. Give me a cleaner one." So I took the penny from her, reached down to my till and then handed her the same penny back. She didn't notice. When I worked at McDonald's my senior year of high school, a homeless man in a wheelchair demanded that I sell him a lottery ticket. He was obviously not all there and so I decided to just roll with it. Suddenly like a switch, he flipped out on me. He yelled at me saying he works closely with the police and that if I was a prostitute, he would report me and have me arrested. This lasted for a good 10 minutes when finally one of my shift managers decided to step in and help me. The homeless man ends up buying one hamburger but he sat in the lobby for the rest of my shift. 2 hours. So many customers complained about his smell and when my managers tried to kick him out he started swatting the air, yelling profanities. We called the cops and an hour later they showed up to wheel the man out. Never seen the man after that. Hope he's doing okay. I worked as an ad support tech for an online company. Usually we do password resets and stuff. Had a woman call in because she forgot her password. Wouldn't give me any information that I could use to help her. She then accused me of racism. How could I know what race she was over the phone, without knowing anything about her? She yelled many times at me and demanded some free stuff cause racism. She called me a honky and hung up. I'm not white. I had a guy when I worked at a call center ask me if there were any other black people working there, implying that I am also black. I am super white. I was just like, yeah, there's plenty of black people here. Worked at a adult shop and had to get the infamous lick my butt guy to stop calling. So context. I was the only straight male with a clearly masculine voice at my job. Only 6 employees including manager. I was relatively new. The girls apparently were being harassed by an anonymous caller for years. Turnover at our job was low, so all the girls had been there for a while. The anonymous caller would try to talk dirty with the girls, specifically asking for them to lick his butt. And when they got angry and insulted him, he would get off on it. Girls tried to hang up at first apparently, but eventually got bored and fricked with him. By the time I got there, however, it wasn't fun to troll him and they just wanted it to stop. So one day he calls lick my butt and one of my co-workers, visibly upset, says stop freaking calling, you creep. Then I ask what's up and she explains who lick my butt guy is. I wander the store doing my usual rounds of cleaning and he just keeps calling. So I tell her to let me answer next time he calls. When I say in my deeper, clearly masculine voice, "Ty for calling," he hangs up. He tries again and keeps hanging up. Then I realize it. He's triggered. He only gets off from women. Knowing this is a golden opportunity, I seize it. He calls again and I put on the softest, most feminine voice I have. I then basically go along with whatever he says. Lick your butt, hacky, only if you lick my butt. After a short exchange he basically says he's close, he's about to CM. And I say in my regular deep masculine voice, "You're talking to a man," and the dude literally shrieks, "What?" And I hang up on him. He calls back enraged, "You lying sucker, I know where you work, I am going to kill you." I told him back, yeah, go clean yourself up and come over here, B. He obviously didn't, and he never called back. I had freed my store of lick my butt guy. Hero. I work as a waiter bartender at a hotel, and last summer we had this freck woman who put so much sugar in her coffee that it was turned into this mush that she'd eat with a spoon. Well, that was the most horrifying thing I've read all day. We was on a big job in a town center and could hear some woman shouting. She was having a full argument walking towards us, but we couldn't see who she was arguing with. When she saw us looking over confused, without breaking stride, she said, "Don't mind me lads, I'm freaking mental," and went back to her argument. Now obviously, with herself. I'm not sure whether it would be worse knowing you're crazy or not knowing. I work as a chemical analyst in a lab. One customer called about some testing, which I promptly inform her we do not do. She proceeds to describe in vague and confusing details about how her landlord is claiming that a previous tenant did there 5 months ago before she was the tenant. At this point I was at a total loss and suggested she get law enforcement involved, since as an independent chemical testing lab we do not have any desire to test for M. Cue up 5 more minutes of ranting about M and why she can't call the cops. Please kids, don't do M. I work in a bakery. I don't normally serve customers unless it get really busy. Once had a woman start ranting about how the government is putting something in flour to make it addictive so people get fat from it and somehow easier to control. She then started pointing out all of our products that were dangerous because of how you could seriously hurt yourself if you bought them. And then decided to buy a pizza roll because she's allowed those because they're completely safe from the government. We still debate over if she was crazy or stoned. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.